Today in Denmark, everything seemed calm. Ordinary. Predictable. Princess Leonor carrying out her discreet schedule. Copenhagen waking under a soft northern sky. The royal guards moving in practiced precision. But then, something no one expected. An unexpected presence. A hidden figure. An Arab prince who was never announced, never photographed, never publicly acknowledged. And yet, he was here. Close. Watching. Waiting. And his quiet arrival reshapes everything you thought you knew about royal relations, private alliances, and the unspoken ties that link two very distant worlds. Because what appears to be secrecy, might actually be protection. And what looks like coincidence, may in fact be something far more deliberate. The truth begins here. For months, royal observers believed Princess Leonor's time in Denmark would remain uneventful, focused mainly on friendship, study, and a quieter life away from the intense attention of Spain. But beneath the surface, subtle movements had already begun. Threads forming, messages exchanged through private channels, quiet diplomatic signals. And far away in the Gulf, a young prince, known for his calm intelligence and sense of responsibility, took interest in something few expected: Leonor's safety during a period of unprecedented global tension. No one imagined these two worlds would intersect. And yet, here we are. At first, the story begins softly. Princess Leonor, wrapped in a long coat against the cold Danish morning, walking with a small group of companions across a quiet courtyard. Her smile warm, her steps light, unaware that at that very moment, a convoy of 3 identical black vehicles rolled through a side entrance of the same palace grounds. Windows tinted, guards unusually alert, movements calculated. This was not a planned diplomatic visit. Not an official arrival. Not something the public was supposed to know. Inside the second car sat a young Arab prince whose presence had been carefully concealed from the press. His mission was personal, though far more layered than anyone realized. And from the moment those doors opened, the day bent toward a different path. A path hidden behind subtle gestures, sudden changes in protocol, and a silence thicker than winter fog. Why was he here? Why now? And why with such secrecy? The answer begins days earlier, in a confidential briefing held within the prince's private residence. Advisors gathered around him, discussing rising tensions in Europe, cyber threats targeting multiple royal families, and whispers of an attempted breach involving a foreign network that had once tried to track Leonor's movements. Though the incident was contained, it echoed in the quiet spaces of international communication. And it reached the ears of the Arab prince, who had met Leonor only once at an international youth forum, a brief interaction, polite and warm, but meaningful enough to imprint a kind of mutual respect. When he heard that Leonor would be in Denmark, mostly without the full protective web of the Spanish royal machinery, something inside him shifted. A responsibility he could not quite name. He insisted on sending support. When his advisors urged caution, he made an uncharacteristic decision: he would go himself. Now, standing at the threshold of the Danish royal residence, he stepped out of the vehicle. Calm, focused, determined, his presence surprised even the limited staff who were cleared for the operation. They bowed slightly, honoring both his identity and the need for absolute silence. Meanwhile, Leonor continued her morning as usual, unaware of the silent ripple that had entered her surroundings. She spoke with students, attended a private briefing, walked through the palace garden. But subtle changes began to register. A guard repositioned, a path redirected, a schedule slightly shifted. She sensed something was different, though she could not yet place it. And the curiosity loop closes with a new one opening. Would she recognize what was unfolding around her? Or would the truth reach her only when everything was already in motion? That moment arrived sooner than expected. In the afternoon, Leonor walked toward a secluded wing of the palace, intending to meet with a Danish official. The corridor was quiet, the air still. And then, turning a corner, she froze slightly. There he was. The Arab prince she had met once, long ago in a faraway diplomatic gathering. A familiar face in an unfamiliar place. Their eyes met for a moment filled with surprise, recognition, and a question neither spoke aloud. He bowed respectfully. "Your Highness, forgive the abruptness of my presence. I came for reasons I hope will bring you clarity, not concern." Leonor, composed yet visibly startled, returned the greeting. "What brings you to Copenhagen? And why this way?" His answer was gentle but firm. "Because not everything can be said on an official channel. And not every warning can be sent in writing. The intrigue deepened. A new loop formed. He explained slowly, carefully, ensuring she understood that nothing was meant to alarm her, only to protect. He spoke of the attempted breach, the intelligence they intercepted, the concern for her safety, the need for discreet solidarity between royal families whose futures may someday intersect diplomatically, or perhaps on a more human level. Leonor listened, and though she remained calm, something in her expression softened. Gratitude, not fear. Understanding, not confusion. But the more he revealed, the more she realized how delicate the situation had become. Denmark was peaceful, yes. But threats rarely come from outside anymore. They emerge through networks invisible to the naked eye. And his arrival signaled that someone, somewhere, had grown interested in her movements in a way that required immediate attention. Yet another question formed. Why would a prince from the Gulf send personal protection to her? What was the deeper connection? He did not answer that part directly. Instead, he simply said, "You represent the future of your nation. And sometimes the future requires allies who act before they are asked." This line stayed with her, echoing through the rest of the afternoon. Leonor's schedule shifted subtly. A private meeting was arranged between her, the Danish Security Council, and the prince's intelligence liaison. For the first time, the reality became clear. They were facing a threat not aimed only at her, but at the stability of royal institutions whose symbolic power still holds significant global weight. As the meeting progressed, voices remained calm but firm. Risks were analyzed, motivations debated. Too many possibilities, too little clarity. And yet, through every explanation, the prince remained quiet, observing, occasionally offering insight drawn from sources no one else in the room had access to. It was during this meeting that Leonor finally understood the full scope of why he came personally. The shared history of royal alliances. The quiet respect they had formed during their single past encounter. The sense of guardianship he had carried for months, unspoken but constant. Another loop closed, and a deeper one opened. Could this unexpected presence be more than diplomatic responsibility? Could it carry emotional undertones neither of them fully acknowledged? As daylight faded into the cool Danish evening, Leonor stepped out into a small balcony overlooking the palace gardens. She needed air, silence, space to breathe. The prince followed at a respectful distance, stopping several steps behind her, waiting to see whether she wished to speak further. She turned to him gently. "I appreciate what you've done. But you must know this creates many questions." His reply was honest. "I know. And I am prepared to answer them. Today, tomorrow, whenever you choose." Their conversation deepened. They spoke not only of security but of the strange burden they both carried, the expectation to represent entire nations while still longing to live as human beings. They spoke of pressure, isolation, responsibility. The weight of destiny placed on young shoulders. In the quiet of the balcony, they found a moment of solidarity rare for people of their rank. And then, as the evening grew colder, he said something that changed the entire emotional temperature of the moment. "I did not come only as a prince. I came as someone who remembers the sincerity you showed when we last met. Someone who believes your future matters beyond politics." She inhaled softly, not expecting the candor. The air between them warmed with unsaid things. Not romance, not confession. Something more subtle, more real, a recognition that in a world of constant caution, two people could still share truth. And with that truth came another loop. Would this connection remain a quiet secret, or would it shape the years to come? The rest of the evening unfolded with a calm that belied the tensions beneath. The prince's team coordinated with Danish and Spanish officials. A new layer of protection surrounded Leonor, silent but efficient. She continued her duties, more aware of the hidden machinery that ensured her safety. And yet, her thoughts returned repeatedly to the balcony, the quiet honesty, and the unexpected warmth of their conversation. Later that night, in a secluded sitting room lit only by a soft lamp, Leonor and the prince shared tea. No guards immediately behind them, no advisors watching from a distance. Just two heirs, speaking like people who understood each other without explanation. He shared stories of his childhood, his sense of responsibility, the expectations placed on him. She shared her fears about taking on the role of future queen, the isolation that comes with leadership, the struggle to remain herself beneath the crown. In that moment, their worlds did not seem so distant. And yet another loop formed. If two futures align for even a moment, what happens when their nations eventually take notice? But the night grew late. Responsibilities called. The prince would leave quietly before dawn, his presence erased from official records. He would walk through the same corridor where they first saw each other hours earlier, but this time with a sense of calm resolution. Before parting, he offered her a final line, gentle and sincere. "If ever you need support, you will find me closer than you think." Leonor nodded, her expression thoughtful, touched, but composed. "Thank you. For everything today. For what I didn't know I needed." Their goodbye held no dramatic romance, no whispered promises, no lingering touches. Just respect, warmth, and a connection that would echo long after the sound of his footsteps faded. Morning came. Newspapers wrote nothing. No leaks. No whispers. No speculation. But something had changed. Leonor moved differently, with renewed awareness. The guards observed more carefully. Danish officials tightened invisible layers of security. And somewhere far away, the Arab prince returned to his own palace, carrying with him the weight of a day that shifted something quiet inside him. A day that connected two worlds not through treaties or politics, but through silent honesty and the unspoken understanding that even future monarchs deserve people who care enough to act without applause. In Denmark, the story will remain unspoken. And, yet beneath the surface, a new chapter has begun. One defined not by scandal or spectacle, but by protection, unexpected loyalty, and a bond that no one else witnessed. Today, you learned the hidden truth behind a single, secret presence. But tomorrow, new questions will arise. What did this quiet connection set into motion? What new alliances will form behind palace doors? And how will this unexpected day in Denmark shape Leonor's future as a queen, as a leader, and as a human being seeking trust in a world that rarely allows it? The story doesn't end here, it only begins.